She lost, and the dare was 90,000 bucks. Everyone thought she was gonna back out, but no way. She literally sent the cash on the spot, adding a note, "A bet is a bet." Talk about a major flex. From that day on, my life completely flipped. The seafood bowls at the cafeteria that I could never afford, I ordered them every day. The boba shop, I went from a broke part-timer to a straight-up regular. I could finally afford the entire set of grad school prep books by the library. She never asked how much I spent, and I never tried to explain it to her either. 4 years later, on graduation day, my bank account had exactly 82 cents left. Her money lasted just long enough to secure my degree and a job offer. Plot twist, fast forward another 4 years. Under an overpass, I spotted a shivering, curled-up figure. Dirty face, tattered clothes, but I instantly recognized those eyes. Wanwan! I heard her family went completely bankrupt. Her parents fled, leaving her to shoulder all the debts alone. She was totally cooked. I squatted down, reached out my hand, and said, "Come with me." She froze, and tears instantly flooded her eyes. Flashback to when the phone rang. I was sitting on the third floor of the cafeteria, eating a cheap bowl of plain white rice. Just some plain rice and a bowl of free soup. Suddenly, my phone screen lit up, showing the name Joe Hao. I hit answer. My fingers were sticky with rice. "Chen Chi, where you at?" Joe Hao's voice blasted through, super loud over the background music and laughing. "Get over to the Golden Palace KTV, room 302. It's Wanwan's birthday." I frowned. Wanwan, the richest girl in class? What does her birthday have to do with me? "I think I'll pass," I said, swallowing my food and coughing slightly. "Don't be a party pooper. Wanwan personally called you out. So get over here." The phone went dead. I looked at my half-eaten rice, completely losing my appetite. Going meant splitting the bill. Tonight's share would easily be $200 or $300, which was half my monthly food budget. But if I didn't go, I'd be blowing off Gu Wanwan herself. I didn't really have friends in class besides my overly friendly roommate, Joe Hao. Offending a rich girl like her had zero benefits. I put down my chopsticks. I got up and walked out. Autumn wind was freezing, so I pulled my faded, washed-out jacket tight. The Golden Palace KTV wasn't far from campus. I walked for about 20 minutes to get there. The doorman gave me a look, and let's just say he was judging me hard. I ignored him and went straight to the third floor. The door to room 302 wasn't fully closed, and the music inside was blasting. I pushed the door open. There were over 20 people in this massive room. The table was loaded with fruit platters, snacks, and expensive liquor. Gu Wanwan was sitting right in the center. She was wearing a gorgeous dress, looking like a total princess. Joe Hao spotted me and waved. "Gee, over here." I walked over and sat in the corner of the sofa. Nobody noticed me. Everyone was just crowding around Gu Wanwan laughing. They were singing and playing dice. Honestly, I felt totally out of place. The air practically smelled like pure money. A bit later, someone suggested that singing was boring and we should do something exciting. How about truth or dare? Everyone cheered, and a bottle started spinning on the table. I was praying it wouldn't point at me. It barely missed me a couple of times. Then the bottle stopped right at Gu Wanwan. The whole room went wild. One guy shouted, "Wanwan, truth or dare?" Gu Wanwan was slightly tipsy, her cheeks flushed with a cute blush. She laughed and chose dare. The guy who asked was Leisha, a total attention seeker. His eyes flicked over to me with a smirk. "Wanwan, dare to make a bet with the guy sitting right behind you?" He was pointing at me, Chen Chi. Suddenly, every single eye in the room locked onto me. I froze. Gu Wanwan turned to look at me. Her eyes had that typical rich girl vibe, completely unbothered but mildly curious. "What's the bet?" Lee's grinned. He announced loudly, "I bet you won't transfer 90,000 bucks to him right now." The room went dead silent for a second, followed by even louder laughter. 90,000? Lee J, are you insane? It's just a game, why make the bet so huge? We're just having fun here. No way she'll do it. Lee J shrugged, "If you're too scared, just drink 3 shots as a penalty." He just wanted to embarrass Gu Wanwan. And he wanted to embarrass me too. Everyone stared at Gu Wanwan. I could feel my face burning. 90,000. To them, it was just a casual number, but to me, it was a whole different story. But my mom had just called me a few days ago, crying that we were 20,000 short to finish building our house, unable to sleep from stress. And here I was, sitting like a total clown. Gu Wanwan didn't say a word, she just looked at me. Her gaze was incredibly calm, with no mockery and no pity. She seemed to be weighing the cost of this dare. Joe Hao nudged me and whispered, "Dude, don't take it seriously, Leija is just an idiot." But how could I not? When your dignity is being dragged through the dirt and stepped on with money, it's impossible not to take it personally. I was treated like straight-up trash. Suddenly, Gu Wanwan smiled. "Sure, why not?" She picked up her phone and opened her banking app. Everyone was stunned, thinking she was just joking around. She looked up at me again. "What's your number?" The room went dead silent, except for the background music. Everyone was staring at her. Then they looked at me. Leisha's smug smile froze on his face. Joe Hao was completely dumbfounded, his mouth wide open, speechless. Felt the blood rush straight to my head. My phone number? She's actually asking for my number? My throat was bone dry and I couldn't squeeze out a single word. Wanwan was super patient. She raised her phone and asked for my number one more time. Almost mechanically, I blurted out the digits. She looked down and started typing fast. Everyone in the room looked at each other. Some whispered, "Is she actually gonna do it? No way, that's 90,000 bucks. Just for some clout? It's not worth it." I just stared at her. Her face was dead serious, like she was just doing some everyday chore. A few seconds later, she set her phone down. She looked up at Li Zhe. Done. Li's face instantly went pale. Wanwan, you don't have to. But she cut him off, her voice completely flat. A bet is a bet. That was a total face slap. She finished speaking, took a sip of her drink, and never looked back, acting like it was no big deal. Meanwhile, inside my pocket, my phone buzzed. I was literally shaking as I reached into my pocket. The screen lit up with a text from the bank. Your savings account, ending in 9527, has received 90,000 yuan. Current balance, 90,088.82 yuan. Bro, those zeros were so bright they literally hurt my eyes. 88.82 yuan. That was literally all I had left to survive this month. But now, 90,088.82. Talk about a major glow up. I stuffed my phone back in my pocket. My palms were dripping with sweat. I stood up, and suddenly the whole room went dead silent. Everyone was staring at me with the most complicated looks on their faces. Some were shocked, some were jealous, and some were just waiting for a disaster. But I did not say a single word. I just turned around and walked straight out of the VIP room. Zhou Hao yelled, "Chen Chi, where are you going?" I did not even look back. I stepped out of that flashy club and the freezing wind hit my face. I shivered, my mind completely blank. I just walked and walked down the streets, having absolutely no idea where I was going. Then, I passed a 24/7 convenience store and went inside. I stood in front of the shelves for what felt like forever. Finally, I reached out and grabbed the absolute most expensive brand of instant noodles. Threw in a sausage and a marinated egg. The total was 15 yuan. Before this, I only dared to buy the cheap 3 yuan packet noodles. I carried my bag back to the dorm. The dorm was completely empty. Zhou Hao and the other guys were not back yet. I boiled some water, poured it into the noodles, and watched the steam rise. That was the moment I finally felt alive again. I sat at my desk, pulled out my phone, and stared at that text one more time. 90,000 yuan. I counted those zeros over and over again. Money meant my mom could finally sleep at night without stressing. It meant I did not have to survive on free cafeteria soup anymore. It meant I could finally buy those post-grad prep books I had been drooling over. It meant I could finally live like a real human being. I finished every last drop of that noodle soup. Then I pulled out a notebook and a pen. My hands were still shaking a little, but my eyes, laser focused. On the very first page of the notebook, I wrote down 3 words, 4-year plan. And then I started to do the math. 4 years of college is 48 months. I budgeted 800 yuan a month for living expenses, which totals 38,400. Tuition is 5,000 a year, so the remaining 3 years is 15,000. 5,000 for post-grad prep books, 20,000 to help my family build our house. That adds up to 78,400. The remaining 11,600, that is my emergency fund. Every single cent was accounted for. This 90,000 yuan was not some lucky windfall from heaven. It was the bet that Gu Wanwan lost. It was my lifeline for the next 4 years. I had to use it perfectly, letting it carry me all the way to graduation and my degree. I will secure a great job, and then I will return every single cent of this money to her with interest. By the time I wrote the last word, the sky was already turning bright. Looking at the plan in my notebook, I felt a peace I had never felt before. The next day on my way to class, I saw Gu Wanwan right at the entrance of the building. She was laughing and chatting with a group of girls, wearing a totally different dress from yesterday. When she spotted me, she froze for a split second. But then, like nothing had even happened, she looked away and kept chatting. I lowered my head and walked fast into the classroom. Between us lay 90,000 yuan, and that 90,000 was all we had left. That is when my life started to change. First up, food. No more going to the 3rd floor to beg for free soup. Started hitting up the seafood station on the 2nd floor. 25 yuan for a shrimp rice bowl. The first time I ordered it, the cafeteria lady literally froze. She stared at me, totally shocked. I just paid with a straight face, took my tray, and sat in the corner. The shrimp was fresh and perfectly cooked. Zhou Hao sat across from me with his deluxe combo meal. He looked at my plate and smirked. "Yo, Chi, did you hit the lottery or what?" Stared at my shrimp rice, totally stunned. "Did you seriously win the lottery?" "No," I said, keeping my head down and eating. "Then what is it?" "Bro, you are acting mad sus lately." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Is this about last night?" "Just eat," I interrupted him. Seeing I was not going to talk, he just shrugged it off. He rolled his eyes and dropped it, but he kept giving me these weird side eyes. Under our dorm, there is a popular milk tea shop. I used to just walk past it with my head down. Now, I go there every single afternoon for an 8 yuan lemonade, the cheapest thing on the menu. The girl working there already knows me. "Seen you're having the usual lemonade today?" "Yeah," I replied. I would walk back to the dorm slowly, making that cup last a whole hour. It was sour but had that hint of sweetness. Back at the library, that set of post-grad prep books, 12 of them in total, cost 880 yuan. I used to go and stare at them all the time. Every single time, I would just flip through the pages. But this time, I walked straight into the bookstore and told the owner, I will take the whole set. I paid up front while he packed them. I walked out holding that heavy stack of brand new books, the warm sun hitting my face. No more fighting for seats at the library, and no more begging to copy other people's old notes. I finally had my own weapons to fight back. Over the weekend, my mom called, her voice still filled with pure dread. "Chi, about the money? Your dad went to borrow some more, but they refused." "Mom," I interrupted, "do not borrow anything. But what else can we do? The site manager is breathing down our necks." "I have the money," I said. Silence took over the line for what felt like an eternity. My mom's voice cracked, sounding like she was about to cry. "You have it? Where would you get that kind of cash? Chi, you did not do something stupid, did you?" "No, Mom." My voice was completely calm. "I got a massive scholarship from school, and with my savings, I have 20,000. 20,000? That much?" "Yeah, it is a national-level scholarship." I lied through my teeth without blinking. "Then, about you? How are you going to live?" "I have plenty, Mom. Just send me your account number. I will head to the bank this afternoon." I hung up and immediately wired 20,000 yuan to her. Walking out of that bank, I swear, the sky looked a whole lot brighter. The very first goal on my plan crossed off. I stopped taking on tutoring gigs and quit working in the cafeteria kitchen. I poured every single second into studying. I practically lived in the library, grinding through textbooks as thick as bricks. Wanwan and I were still in the same class. In big lectures, she sat in the front row while I sat all the way in the back. But in smaller classes, fate sometimes put us in the same group. She never said a word to me, and I sure was not going to initiate. But then, during a group project, we had to pair up for a major presentation. Plot twist. The teacher randomly paired the two of us together. The entire room immediately looked at us with the most awkward expressions. After what had happened, the whole class knew exactly who we were. No way. Wanwan casually flexed and dropped $90,000 to sponsor the poorest guy in class, me. Instantly, the rumors went absolutely wild. Some said we were dating. Others said I was her sugar baby. But Wanwan acted like she didn't hear a damn thing. She just stared at me, cold and robotic, and asked which part of the project I was doing. I told her I would handle the last 3 slides. She just nodded, turned around, and started talking to someone else. Zero communication, cold as ice. I did all the research. I built the entire PowerPoint. The day before the presentation, I sent her the file. Her reply? A dry 2-word text received. Day, we got on stage. I crushed my part, she did hers. Honestly, we had zero chemistry. But we did not mess up either. The professor actually gave us a solid grade. When we walked off, she was leading the way, and I was trailing behind. Right at the exit, she suddenly stopped and turned around. She looked at me and said, "Not bad." That was the first thing she had said to me since that night. No emotion, just a statement. No drama, just a cold review. I replied that it was just my job. She gave a quick nod, turned around, and walked away. Her walk was just as proud and distant as that night in the karaoke room. It was like that $90,000 was just a stupid game to her. She did not care at all. But damn it, I cared. I got back to my dorm, ripped open my 4-year plan notebook, and stared at Gu Wanwan's name written on the front page. Right next to her name, I wrote, "Collaborated once," and then aggressively crossed it out. It was a ritual to remind myself that between her and me, there was absolutely nothing but money. Sophomore year, I got a national scholarship of $8,000. I did not spend a single cent. I locked it away in a separate bank account immediately. That was unexpected cash and the official launch of my debt repayment plan. I kept sticking to my strict 4-year plan, living off $800 a month. Not a single penny more. Not a single penny less. I tracked every single cent in a small notebook. A pen for $1.50? Recorded. A quick lunch? Recorded. $12? Recorded. Class fee of $20? Recorded. My roommate Joe Howe literally told me I was living like a robot. He was like, "Bro, are you serious? You are not even broke right now." Stared at my ledger, completely baffled, asking what my deal was. But I could not explain it to him. He had no idea that $90,000 was not just money to me. It was a tight leash wrapped around my neck, and the other end was in Gu Wanwan's hands. The only way out was to claw my way up and shorten that leash, inch by inch, all on my own. That was the only way I could ever breathe freely again. Fast forward to the second semester of sophomore year. The school's sports day was coming up, and every class had a mandatory sign-up quota. The counselor could not find a single soul to run the 3,000 meters. Joe Howe casually volunteered me. He was like, "Bro, you are always running or grinding at the library. Your stamina must be insane. Go bring home the win for the class." I did not even complain. Running is free and it keeps me in shape. But damn, the day of the race was absolute hell. The heat was unreal. Wearing my basic tank top and cheap shorts, I stood at the starting line. The starting gun went off, and I just locked into my own pace. I was not trying to flex or win. I just wanted to cross the finish line. But by the final lap, my body was totally cooked. Wet was blinding my eyes, and my lungs felt like they were literally on fire. As I passed the main stage, I instinctively looked up, and there she was. Wanwan was sitting with the elite student council crowd, rocking their exclusive uniform and a sleek sun hat, chatting and laughing with some guy next to her, looking totally effortless. Under the bright sun, she looked unreal, like a main character. She did not even glance at the track. She did not look at me. In her high society world, this boring sports day was probably nothing, definitely not as important as gossiping with her rich friends. I looked away, gritted my teeth, and pushed through the pain. When I finally crossed the finish line, completely collapsed onto the dirt, Joe Howe rushed over, helping me up and handing me a bottle of water. He yelled, "Fourth place! Bro, you are absolutely cracked. You almost grabbed a podium spot." I was gasping for air, unable to utter a single word, but deep down I felt this crushing reality. The massive gap between me and Gu Wanwan was exactly like this 3,000-meter track. I was down here, sweating, gasping, looking like absolute trash, completely wrecked, while she was up there on her high throne, totally chill, untouched by the world. That night, I went back to my room, opened my notebook, and wrote down, repayment plan, starting funds $8,000, target $90,000. It was no longer just some distant, impossible dream. I had my first stepping stone. Time started flying. My life became a locked-in routine. Class, eat, library, sleep. I completely skipped all the parties and social events. I barely spoke to anyone. My classmates got used to me being a total lone wolf. To them, Chen Chi was just some academic beast with insane grades. But only I knew the truth. I could not stop grinding. If I paused for even a second, that massive debt would crush me. Junior year, I got selected by a professor for a research project, bagging a $500 monthly stipend. I also started using my free time to hustle on freelance coding gigs online. It was exhausting, and I was pulling all-nighters constantly, but every single month, another $1,000 or $2,000 hit my savings. Seeing those numbers slowly tick up was the only thing that kept me sane. Meanwhile, Gu Wanwan's life had zero changes. She was still the ultimate main character wherever she went, flexing expensive fits and driving fancy sports cars I could not even identify. We still did not talk at all, only occasionally crossing paths on campus. Her eyes would pass over me, never lingering for more than a single second. It was the look you give a total stranger. And honestly, I was totally fine with that. We belonged to completely different worlds. That $90,000 was just a wild accident, a transaction. She used her wealth to win a stupid truth or dare game. She bought her victory with my dignity, but I used that cash as my golden ticket to rewrite my entire destiny. The game was still on, and I was grinding, become someone she actually had to respect. Just like that, senior year arrived, classes died down, and everyone started stressing about their futures. Some were cramming for grad school, others were prepping for civil exams, and the rest were desperately job hunting. The dorm hallways were constantly echoing with frantic phone calls. While others were crying and stressing over job interviews, I was on that absolute grind, balancing my final graduation project while prepping for massive corporate entrance exams. My 4-year master plan was finally reaching the endgame. In my notebook, every single cent spent was tracked down to the penny. I squeezed every single drop of value out of those 90,000 bucks. It armed my brain with pure knowledge and kept my dignity intact. Meanwhile, rumor said Gu Wanwan was prepping to go abroad. Joe Howe told me her family already mapped out her entire cheat code life. Ivy League graduation, then straight to Wall Street. Talk about a certified life winner. Joe Howe was dripping with envy, but I just shrugged. No big deal. That was just her default setting, her pre-written destiny. Then on a random afternoon, I was heading back from the library. As I passed the campus lake, I spotted a familiar figure. Plot twist, it was Gu Wanwan herself. No squad, no simps, just her sitting alone on a bench. She was rocking a simple white dress, staring blankly at the water. The setting sun hit her just right, casting a soft golden glow. For once, she did not have that icy, stay away from me, absolute queen energy. She actually looked lonely, fragile even. I froze in the shadows of a nearby tree. Why was she all alone? Maybe her Ivy League applications got hit with a reality check. Or maybe drama with her rich friends? A million theories flashed through my mind, but none of them made sense. She just sat there, dead silent. The wind blew through her long hair. Then she pulled something out of her bag. Looks like a tiny, old-school music box. She wound it up, and a sweet, nostalgic melody started playing. It was Castle in the Sky. She cradled the music box like it was her entire world. Head down, completely frozen. I could not see her face, but the sheer sadness radiating from her was heavy. Was not the Wanwan I knew. In my head, she was always this invincible top-tier goddess who had life on easy mode. She was the girl who dropped 90,000 bucks without blinking and closed deals with me with zero emotion. A perfect ice-cold statue. But right now, that perfect statue had a massive crack. It hit me back in freshman year, right after she transferred me that cash. Her face when she said, "A bet is a bet." It was cold, sure, but deep down, there was this look, something I was too oblivious to understand back then. What was she hiding? I had no clue. I stood there in the shadow for what felt like hours until the sun fully dipped. Street lights flickered on. Gu Wanwan packed up her music box, stood up, and slowly walked away. She never even noticed I was there. I got back to my dorm, and for the first time ever, I did not open my ledger or touch my repayment plan. I just sat at my desk, completely zoned out. My head was spinning with the image of her by the lake and that damn castle in the sky melody. It finally hit me. Gu Wanwan, maybe she was not living the dream life after all. Hidden behind that full rich girl world, she had her own loneliness and demons. Sure, 90,000 bucks was pocket change to her, but what did that crazy truth or dare and that "a bet is a bet" line actually mean to her? For the first time, I was actually questioning it. But there were no answers. Between us lay a massive, impossible class divide. The only move I had left: finish this transaction, pay her back, and ghost her world forever. I fired up my laptop and started polishing my resume. The interviews were coming, and I had to secure the absolute best offer. Graduation was creeping up, and then, boom, I bagged an offer from a top-tier tech giant in the country. The salary package absolutely insane, way past my expectations. The day I signed, I walked out into the sun and took a massive sigh of relief. 4 long years of grinding and staying low-key finally paid off. I immediately called home to tell my mom. She instantly broke down in tears over the phone. She kept repeating, "My boy actually made it. My son is successful." Honestly, I teared up a bit too. That night, I got back to the dorm and opened my master plan notebook. The final page was my ultimate budget summary. Total income, 90,000. Tuition, 15,000. Monthly living expenses at 800 yuan, then 36,800. Research materials at 4,800. Sent 20,000 home and miscellaneous costs at 1,300. Total damage, 77,900 yuan. And that was just the core budget. The rest of the minor pocket change was tracked in a separate notepad. 4 years, I cleared out almost every single cent of that 90,000. I checked my balance, 90,088 yuan and 82 cents. Now, just 82 cents left. Perfect calculation. Everything went exactly as planned. I closed the book. This notebook, which held 4 years of my youth, struggle, and humiliation, had officially completed its mission. I already stacked over 30,000 in my savings, still a long way from paying back 90,000, but now I had a high-paying, stable gig. The ability to pay her back was there. It was just a matter of time now. On graduation day, the sky was crystal clear, and everyone was decked out in their graduation gowns. People were going wild, taking photos, laughing, hugging, saying their final goodbyes. But me, I felt like a total outsider, standing quietly, watching from the sidelines. I did not really have friends, except Joe Howe, and he already signed a job back in his hometown, catching a train this afternoon. As for Gu Wanwan, I could not find her anywhere. I searched the crowd all morning, but she was a total no-show. Maybe she skipped it entirely. To a girl like her, graduation probably meant nothing. I did not know if I felt relieved or just completely let down. I had been prepping what to say for days. I wanted to look her in the eye, thank her, and let her know I was going to pay back every single dime. But she was gone. Just as I turned to leave, a voice called out behind me, "Chen Chi." I whipped my head around. There she was, wearing her graduation gown. Her long hair fell perfectly over her shoulders, wearing light makeup, absolutely stunning. She was just standing there, quiet and alone. She looked right at me and said, "Congratulations." I cleared my throat, feeling my voice go dry. "You too," I managed to say. "So, did you get the job offer?" she asked. "Yeah," I replied. "Nice." She just nodded, her face completely blank. And just like that, the silence between us was deafening. Everyone around us was rushing by, all loud and busy. But the two of us, we were just standing there like a scene straight out of a silent movie. Desperately wanted to bring up the money. I wanted to flash my $30,000 account in her face and lay out my whole payback plan. But the moment I opened my mouth, I choked the words right back down. Like this girl was literally heading to Wall Street. Compared to her, my tiny salary and cute little plan, it was a complete joke. No way was I going to let her see how broke and desperate I still felt. I was about to force some words out, but she beat me to it, saying, "I am heading out." "Safe flight to the States," I managed to say. She looked at me with this insanely deep stare. "Chen Chi." She suddenly called my name out of nowhere. "Forget about the money. You don't owe me a dime." I completely froze. She added, "I lost that bet. It has nothing to do with you." She paused, then dropped a massive truth bomb. "Besides, you already got what you wanted on your own, didn't you?" Before I could even process that, she turned and walked away. Stood there, watching her back disappear into the crowd. A sleek black car pulled up at the campus gates, and she hopped in. She was gone in a flash. I stood frozen on the spot for what felt like forever, clutching my heavy graduation certificate so tight my knuckles turned white. She said I didn't have to pay. She said I already won. But honestly, it just made me feel completely empty inside. She just casually canceled our whole deal on her own. I didn't even get the chance to clear my debt, that massive rope connecting us. The one I was desperately trying to tear apart with everything I had. She just casually snipped it with a single flick of her wrist. Felt like throwing a massive punch with all my strength only to hit thin air. I was completely powerless and lost. 4 years of my life, gone, and just like that, Charlie with Wanwan was officially over. But that's what I thought. On my very first day at the new job, the HR rep showed me around, standing by the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the insane skyscrapers. Everyone was rushing around, their faces a mix of pure exhaustion and high-key hype. The whole place literally smelled like caffeine and straight cash. It smelled exactly like that high-end KTV 4 years ago, but also completely different. Back then, money was just a game to flex. Here, money was the ultimate goal. It was fuel. I locked in instantly, seamlessly continuing the same grind I had for 4 years in college. Super disciplined, hyper-efficient, laser-focused. While others showed up at 9, I was already grinding by 8. When they left at 6, I was still putting in work past midnight. My coworkers started calling me the ultimate tryhard. At first, it was just a joke, but soon it turned into straight-up respect. Not that I cared. They were all chasing promotions, fat bonuses, and stock options. But me, I was chasing a single number. I even set up a brand new bank account just for it. Second my paycheck hit, I would pay for basic survival, dump every single leftover dollar straight into that account. I wasn't going to live like I did back in college, limiting myself to just $800. But I still kept my life super low-key. No luxury brands, no useless hanging out. My only real escape was hitting the gym downstairs. My life was basically a straight line. 1 year later, I became the absolute carry of my team. 2 years in polo carrying major projects. My year-end bonus hit a clean 6 figures. By year 3, I got promoted to project lead, running my own squad. My debt payback account had already blasted past 90,000. I even calculated 8 years of interest on it using the highest bank rates possible. I rounded it up to a clean 120,000. The cash was ready to go, but my creditor had completely vanished. After graduation, Wanwan literally vanished off the face of the earth. I searched everywhere. I combed through every single social media platform, but there was zero trace of anyone named Wanwan. Not a single active account matched. I even hit up Joe Howe, but he was completely clueless. He just said, "Bro, she moved to the United States. She is in a whole different league now. There is no way we would still be in touch." Joe Howe told me over the phone. He had moved back to his hometown, settling down for a stable government job and getting ready to marry. We would chat sometimes, but it was just basic life stuff. The name Gu Wanwan became the ultimate taboo. Nobody dared to bring it up. I kept that 120,000 sitting in my account completely untouched. It sat there like a cold tombstone, a monument to my desperate, messed up youth. It was a quest I could never complete, constantly reminding me that I still owed someone. By year 4, I dropped a down payment on a place in the city. It wasn't huge, but the view was absolutely fire. I bought a ride too. Nothing flashy, but it was enough to get me around this massive concrete jungle. Standing by my own floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker below, I had the career, the apartment, the ride. By everyone's standards, I had officially made it. I was winning. I had finally become the guy I always dreamed of being. But that massive void in my chest left by Gu Wanwan, it was still completely empty. I kept wondering how she was doing in America. A proud princess like her, did she make new friends in a foreign country? Was she still playing truth or dare? Was she still out there casually changing some broke kid's entire destiny? All I knew was that if I didn't find her, this debt would haunt me forever. Then, on a random Friday night, my old college group chat, which had been dead for ages, suddenly blew up with notifications. The class rep dropped an announcement. A 4-year reunion was happening next weekend. The venue? 5-star hotel buffet. The chat immediately went wild. "No way, 4 years already? Let's go. If you're local, you better show up." stared at the spam of flashing profile pictures, feeling absolutely nothing. My life now was light years away from anyone in college. Going to those things is just a massive flex off where everyone brags about their jobs. I had zero interest in wasting my time like that. But right as I went to close the app, Joe Howe's DM popped up. Yo, you going to the reunion? Nah, I texted back. Come on, bro, you gotta go. It's been 4 years, let's catch up with the old squad. I heard Liger is showing up too. That dude is absolutely crushing it now, even started his own company. The name Liger hit me like a straight up thorn in my side. That instantly triggered my fight or flight. Back in the day at that KTV, this trash used that exact same smug, toxic voice to propose that $90,000 bet. He was the one who nailed me to a pillar of absolute shame. I tried to make an excuse like, yo, you guys go ahead, I gotta work this weekend. But they shut me down instant like, stop capping, you are literally a manager now. Do you really need to grind every single day? Come hang out, I haven't seen you in forever. I literally flew in from my hometown just for this. At that point, I couldn't even say no. So the night of the reunion, I pull up to the hotel. The parking lot's absolutely stacked with luxury rides like BMWs, Mercedes, and Porsches. I just parked my car quiet in the corner. Phil felt like that same broke kid walking into a palace of luxury. Except this time I was flexing in a clean, sharp suit. And I actually had enough cash in my pocket to pay for this crazy, expensive dinner. The VIP room was packed, and honestly, a lot of people looked totally different. Some got fat, some went bald. But the second they saw me walk in, a bunch of them literally jumped up to hype me up. They were like, no way, Chen Chi, is that you? Look at you, a total big boss now. Boss Chi, it is an honor, man. Back in the day, these fake friends treated me like a ghost, but now, they all had these massive fake smiles plastered on their faces. Kept it cool, gave them a polite nod, and found a corner to sit down. And of course, Liger was there, flexing in head-to-toe designer clothes, wearing those gold-rimmed glasses, looking like an absolute clown trying to act classy. The moment he spotted me, he walked over holding a glass of wine, acting all friendly like, yo, Chen Chi! Long time no see, man. I heard you were absolutely crushing it at that tech giant. I just kept it low-key and said, it is all right. He clinked his glass against mine and said, oh, come on, don't be so humble. In our class, the only ones who made it big are you and oh wait, actually now it is just you. He literally brought up her name on purpose, then stopped himself to see my reaction. I just stared at him, saying absolutely nothing. After a few drinks, everyone started loosening up. People were reminiscing about the old days, and then out of nowhere, someone brought up Wanwan again. Like, what is our class goddess Wanwan up to these days? She is probably some high-flying Wall Street elite in America, right? The second those words left his mouth, the entire VIP room went dead silent. Everyone was exchanging these super awkward tense looks. Lija took a slow sip of his drink and let out a mocking laugh. Wall Street elite? Are you guys living in a fantasy world? One of the girls got super curious and asked him, wait, do you actually know some tea? Lee J was absolutely loving being the center of attention. He cleared his throat and smirked. Her family went bankrupt ages ago. You guys seriously didn't know. Everyone gasped. Bankrupt? No way, is that for real? Everyone was totally shook. Of course it is real, Liger said, sounding incredibly smug. It was like 2 years ago. Her dad got scammed on a bad investment, and everything went down the drain. Their cash flow completely collapsed, and they ended up drowning in massive debt. I heard it was literally hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. Someone gasped, horror-struck. So what happened to Wanwan? Oh, her parents were real slick. They dipped overnight and fled the country. They are literally wanted fugitives right now. Sucks for our little princess Wanwan, though. She was left all alone to tank the entire debt by herself. Liger shrugged, not showing a single ounce of sympathy. In fact, I heard a while ago, Port auctioned off every single thing she owned. Now she is blacklisted as a deadbeat. She can't even board a plane or catch a high-speed train. Damn how the tables have turned. The room fell into a dead silence. Everyone was too stunned to speak. I felt my blood instantly run ice cold and my ears started ringing like crazy. Whatever Liger said after that, I couldn't hear a single word. My mind was stuck on one thing. Wanwan was ruined. The girl who used to shine as bright as the sun, the girl who saved my life with $90,000, had completely fallen. I slammed my hands down and stood up so fast my chair screeched against the floor. The harsh sound echoed through the room, and everyone stared at me in shock. I did not say a word. I just turned around and stormed out. I walked out of the hotel. The freezing winter wind slapped my face, but I couldn't feel a thing. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands, completely lost. My mind was screaming one single thought: find her. I have to find her. I went absolutely feral trying to find her. For the first time in my life, I leveraged every single resource I had. I even hired a private investigator to track her down. I begged my company's legal team to dig through public court records for any debt lawsuits linked to her name. Piece by piece, the dark truth started coming together. Li Jie wasn't lying. In fact, it was way worse than he described. Her dad's company went bankrupt, and since she was one of the guarantors, she was held fully liable. Her house, her car, and every single cent in her bank accounts were frozen and auctioned off to the highest bidder to pay off the debt. But that was barely a drop in the ocean. She was blacklisted by the government as a dishonest debtor, meaning she was basically branded as a social pariah, banned from high spending, banned from flying, banned from high-speed trains, and legally blocked from staying in hotels. An invisible, suffocating net was crushing her at the absolute bottom of society. The last lead the detective got was from 6 months ago. She was renting a damp, rundown basement. But when she couldn't even afford that rent, the landlord threw her out on the street. After that, she vanished off the face of the earth. Trail went completely cold. I parked my car outside that decrepit building, staring at that dark, freezing basement entrance for hours. I couldn't even process it. How did Wanwan go from living in the clouds to drowning in a swamp like this? How did she carry all that crushing weight entirely on her own? For the next few months, I lived like a ghost, haunting every single corner of the city. The second I clocked out of work, I wouldn't even go home. Drove around endlessly, searching places where the homeless might gather. Under bridges and dark parks, subway exits, 24-hour fast food joints. Every single time I saw a frail woman, my heart would stop. But every single time it wasn't her. Started to panic, thinking I might never find her again. Maybe she fled the city. Maybe she was already gone. That thought chilled me to the absolute bone. Then came a freezing winter night. I had just finished a brutal, week-long crunch at work. My body and mind were completely broken. It was already 1 in the morning, and I was driving down the desolate, empty streets. As I approached an overpass, there was a massive fender bender blocking the road ahead. I had to take a detour under the bridge, and right there, under the overpass, there are always tons of homeless people crashing here overnight. Cardboard and raggedy blankets, that's all they have to build these sketchy little shelters. I was driving by, headlights scanning over those shivering, curled-up figures. Honestly, I was completely numb to it. But just as the lights were about to pass the very last shack, my heart literally stopped. Someone was lying there, wrapped in this filthy, shredded military coat, huddled up into a tight ball. Looked like everyone else at first, but sticking out of those nasty blankets was a single foot, and he was wearing a canvas shoe. You couldn't even tell what color it used to be, but I knew that style instantly. It was the exact cheap shoe I'd seen a million times back in the college town shops. Wait, Wanwan would never wear trashy shoes like this, but my heart started racing like crazy for no reason. I pulled over, killed the engine, and stepped out. Freezing wind was cutting my face like a straight-up knife. Step by step, I walked toward him. It was dead silent, just the howling wind and the pounding of my own heart. I reached the shelter and slowly crouched down. Under the dim yellow glow of a distant streetlight, I finally saw his face clearly. Face was covered in dirt, his hair tangled like dead grass. He was so skinny his cheeks were completely sunken, and his lips were dry and cracked. But that familiar face, those eyes, even closed, still had that stubborn look. It was him. It was actually him. I literally stopped breathing, like a massive hammer just slammed into my chest. It hit so hard I couldn't even breathe or speak. He must have sensed someone was there because his body twitched and his eyelids started to flutter. Struggled to blink his eyes open. Those eyes used to be so bright and clear, looking at me with curiosity and aloofness. But now, there was nothing left but pure exhaustion and emptiness. Stared at me, his eyes completely unfocused, like his brain hadn't even registered what was happening. I just stared back. Seeing how lost he looked, I reached out and opened my palm to him, just like 4 years ago, when he did the exact same thing to me at graduation, totally unsure of himself. My voice cut through the freezing night wind, clear as day. "Will you come with me?" His eyes shot wide open. That blank stare was instantly replaced with absolute shock and disbelief. He just locked eyes with me, completely stunned, down at my open hand. The next second, massive tears started spilling from his dull eyes, pouring silently down his dirty face. It was like years of frozen over pain finally melted all at once, collapsing silently. No loud crying, no drama, not even a sob. Just quiet tears running down, washing away the dirt on his skin and leaving clean streaks behind. I didn't rush him. I didn't say a word. We just stayed like that. One crouching, one lying down, locked in this silent standoff under the freezing highway overpass. It was like the whole world went on mute. The only sound was the faint hum of cars passing in the distance and his silent tears, soaked in absolute despair. Finally, I stood up, took off my insanely expensive cashmere coat, and bent down to wrap it around his fragile shoulders. The coat was still warm from my body, smelling like my high-end woody cologne. That warmth and luxury was a brutal contrast to the sour, damp smell of his dirty clenched hard, like the warmth actually burned him. His tears came down even faster. He tried to push the coat off, but he was just too weak. His arm dropped halfway up, completely powerless. I wasn't about to let him reject me. I squatted back down, and with zero room for argument, I grabbed his freezing arm and pulled him straight out of that filthy pile of blankets. He was insanely light like a feather. I basically had to carry him. I held up his shaking, unsteady body as he stumbled along. Every single step was a massive struggle for him. The short walk from under the bridge to my car, barely a few yards, but it took us forever. I opened the door and gently sat him down in the passenger seat. Huddled up in that huge leather seat, he looked so tiny and frail. My coat swallowed him whole, making him look like a kid wearing their parents' clothes. I shut the door, got behind the wheel, and blasted the heater. But as soon as the warm air hit him, his body started shivering uncontrollably again. Teeth were literally chattering. It was just his body's shock reaction to suddenly getting warm after being frozen solid. I didn't ask him where he wanted to go. I didn't ask what happened to him over the years either. I just quietly merged into traffic. He didn't say a word, just stared out the window at the passing neon lights. Those flashing city lights reflected in his hollow eyes, but there was zero life in them. He looked like a puppet with its soul completely ripped out. He had absolutely zero interest in this flashy world that used to belong to him. We finally pulled into my apartment's underground garage. I killed the engine, walked around, and opened his door. "We're here," I said, but he didn't even budge, just kept staring blankly out the window. I waited patiently. After what felt like forever, he slowly turned to face me, his eyes filled with confusion and doubt. Once again, I held out my hand, just like under the bridge. This time he hesitated for a second, then took his freezing, dirty hand, covered in tiny cuts, and gently placed it in my palm. I held on tight, pulled him out of the car, and led him into the elevator. The clean, mirrored walls showed both of us perfectly. One of us was in a sharp suit, standing tall, the textbook definition of a city elite. The other was in rags, looking completely starved, like a refugee from another world. It was wild, but totally real. I scanned my fingerprint, and the warm, bright lights of my place spilled out. My apartment isn't huge, but I keep it absolutely spotless. Super clean, modern vibe, everything in its place. But Wanwan just stood at the door, terrified to step inside. He stared down at his feet, filthy canvas shoes, then at my polished hardwood floors, and instinctively took a step back. "Come inside," I said. I grabbed a brand new pair of slippers from the cabinet and set them down. He hesitated, slowly put them on, and followed me into the living room, moving like a statue. I pointed toward the bathroom. "Go take a shower. There is plenty of hot water, and there are clean towels and a change of clothes in the cabinet. I don't have any women's clothes." So I grabbed a brand new, unworn cotton tracksuit from my closet. He just nodded and walked into the bathroom, moving like a literal robot. Soon I hear water splashing from the bathroom. I head over to the kitchen and pop open the fridge. It is completely loaded with premium imported food, milk, steaks, you name it. Tons of fresh veggies and fruits. But honestly, I have no idea what to make for her. Her stomach is probably totally cooked right now. So I just scoop out one small bowl of rice from the bin. I wash it clean, throw it in the pot, and start slow cooking some plain rice porridge. But the shower runs for ages, like so long I actually start getting worried. Pass out in there or what? Just as I am about to knock on the door, the water finally stops. Another 15 minutes pass. Bathroom door slowly creaks open and she steps out. Her hair is soaking wet, draped over her shoulders, and she is wearing my oversized sweatpants and hoodie. Pants are way too long, dragging all over the floor. She looks completely drained, but with all the dirt washed off, her real face is finally visible. She is pale, but not a healthy white. It is a sickly, ghostly pale. She is so thin her cheekbones are sticking out and her eyes are totally sunken. Her chin is dangerously sharp. That once proud, gorgeous face completely shattered now. Just pure trauma and exhaustion. She cannot even look me in the eye. Just stares at the floor, nervously clutching her shirt. I scoop the warm porridge into a bowl, place it on the table, and slide it over to her. "Eat something," I say, keeping my voice soft. She looks up at the steaming, hot, clean bowl of porridge, then looks back at me. Her eyes, still warm from the shower, are already welling up again. Tears start streaming down her face, splashing right into the bowl, creating tiny ripples. But finally, she slowly picks up the bowl. Her hands are shaking so bad that the ceramic spoon is clinking against the bowl. She keeps her head down, taking tiny bites of the porridge, mixed with her own tears. At first, she is just swallowing it mechanically, like a robot. But then, it is like years of starvation finally kick in. She starts eating faster and faster until the bowl is completely empty. I do not say a word. I just grab her bowl and scoop another half serving. She does not push it away. She just takes it and keeps eating. After finishing the second bowl, she finally puts down the spoon. Now that she actually has food in her system, she is starting to look a little more alive. She is not looking like a ghost anymore. I clean up the table, then point to the guest room next to mine. You sleep there. Get some rest. The guest room door is open, showing a bed with fresh sheets, a closet, and a window with a view of the city lights. Stands at the doorway, staring at the soft, warm bed. She wants to lie down so bad, but she is too scared to even take a step. It is like she thinks she does not deserve it. Go in, I tell her, making sure my voice is firm. She snaps out of it, bows her head, and quickly rushes inside. She softly shuts the door. I head back to my own room, but there is no way I can sleep. Through the walls, I can hear faint noises. It sounds like she is sobbing, trying so hard to keep it quiet. Honestly, my heart feels like it is being squeezed by a giant fist. I finally found her. I brought her back to my place. This was supposed to be the epic moment of redemption I imagined a million times. But there is no relief, no victory lap. Just this heavy, suffocating pain. This is the same girl who once threw down $90,000, like a literal goddess, to drag me out of the mud. And now, she needs me to give her a simple bowl of porridge just to stay alive. Fate is absolutely brutal, man. Over the next few days, we fall into this weird routine. I head out to work every day and she just stays home. She sleeps. A lot. On day one, she literally sleeps for 20 hours straight. It is like she is trying to make up for years of pure survival mode, and she still does not talk. Zero communication. Every morning before work, I leave a simple breakfast on the table and bring back dinner when I get home. I get her a new phone, a new SIM card, and a bunch of new clothes. No fancy dresses or anything. Just simple, comfy hoodies, t-shirts, and jeans. I stock her closet with them. She silently eats the food I leave. She wears the clothes I bought, but she is basically a ghost in my apartment. So quiet you would barely even know she is there. I can feel it. She is using this silence as a shield to protect whatever little pride she has left. She refuses to talk to me. Opening her mouth means admitting it all. Admitting she failed, admitting her life is broken, and admitting she is living on my charity. I know I have to give her space, but on day 4, things change. I get home from work and notice something. The mountain of dirty dishes in the sink is completely gone, stacked up perfectly. Even the apartment floor is spotless, cleaner than when I do it myself. I walk into the living room and find her sitting on the couch. For once, she is not hiding in her room. She is just sitting there. Staring out the window at the sunset, her back looks so frail, almost like paper. When she hears me walk in, she flinches. She stands up and turns around. Her lips part like she wants to say something, but she hesitates. She hangs her head and starts walking back to her room. Wait, I call out. She stops, keeping her back to me. You do not have to do all this cleaning, I say. Freezes. After what feels like forever, she finally turns around and looks me straight in the eyes. Her eyes are a storm of raw emotion. Gratitude, shame, struggle, and this weird look of determination I cannot quite figure out. Then she finally speaks. For the first time since she got here, she says something. Her voice is incredibly dry and raspy, like sandpaper. I cannot just stay here for free, she whispers. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Even now, hit by rock bottom, she is still worrying about keeping score. She is still that incredibly proud Wanwan. Looking at her, my head is spinning with mixed emotions. I walk over to my study. I reach into the deepest drawer of my bookcase and pull out an old notebook. Just a totally basic, worn-out notebook. I walk back into the living room, slide right up to him, and flip the notebook open. Bro looks down, completely lost, but the second his eyes see that very first page, his pupils shrink. No way. Right there, written in my clean, perfect handwriting, are 4 words. It was the ultimate breakdown of that 90,000 cash. Tuition, living expenses, books, everything. Even the cash sent home is tracked to the penny. I point straight to the living expenses and tell him, back then you used 90,000 to cover my rent and food for 4 whole years. My voice is dead quiet, but it hits with absolute power. Now it is my turn. Bro just stares at the notebook, completely stunned, staring at the wall of numbers and words. It was just a game to him back then, a joke bet he forgot ages ago. But to me, it was 4 years of my life. Survival contract I followed like a sacred law. Suddenly, his hands start shaking like crazy. He reaches out, wanting to touch the words on the paper, but he is too scared. Those eyes of his, which had been dead, silent, and bloodshot for days, finally shatter. This 4-year plan is the ultimate key that cracks open his locked emotions. He cannot even play it cool anymore. Defenses are completely cooked. He buries his face in his hands, collapsing to the floor, shoulders shaking violently. Pain he locked up for so long finally burst through his fingers. No silent tears, no quiet sobbing. Straight up soul-crushing, heart-wrenching crying. He is letting out every single bit of pain, despair, and fear from the last few years. I do not try to pull him up, and I do not say a word. I know he does not need cheap sympathy right now. He just needs an outlet to totally break down and let it all out. I just stand there quietly, placing a tissue box right next to him, like a silent guardian, letting his cries echo through the quiet apartment. He cries for ages, until his voice goes completely hoarse. body is shaking from pure exhaustion as he finally starts to quiet down. He is curled up on the floor like a lost kid, shoulders still twitching. I pour him a cup of warm water. He takes a sip, finally calming down a bit. Get up, I say, the floor is freezing. He uses the couch to pull himself up, completely drained, and sits down. I take that notebook, slide it onto the coffee table right in front of him. The room goes dead silent. After what feels like forever, his hoarse voice breaks the silence. I am sorry, hesitate, and I am actually shocked, staring at him. About back then, I am so sorry, he says, keeping his head low, voice dripping with guilt. I had no idea. I did not know what that money meant to you. You do not need to apologize, I cut him off. Honestly, I should be thanking you. Without that money, I would not be standing here today. Facts, those 90,000 bucks were not just cash. It was a literal beam of light in my darkest hour. It was the only lifeline I had while drowning in the mud. It shaped me and it made me who I am. He looks up, his eyes red and swollen, lips. Finally, he asks the one question, why? Voice is barely a whisper, like he is asking me, or maybe himself. Why are you being so good to me? Looking into his eyes, totally filled with confusion, I do not give a direct answer. Instead, I pull out my phone. I unlock it, open my banking app, pull up a specific account and slide it over. Bro takes it, completely lost. Second he sees the numbers on the screen, he freezes. The balance shows 120,000. He looks up at me, completely mind blown. This is your money, I say. The 90,000 principal, plus 8 years of compound interest at the highest rate. I had this ready for a long time, I just could not find you. Wanwan stares at the numbers on the screen, totally frozen. 120,000 is pocket change compared to his family's massive debt, but he knows the truth. The meaning of this cash goes way beyond the paper value. This was my ultimate drive for 8 long years, the lighthouse that kept me going through the dark. It was the pride of a man that I fought tooth and nail to win back. And more than anything, it is proof. Proof that we are not charity and master, but equals. It was a fair trade. He finally gets it now. He gets why I tracked him down, why I brought him home, and why I am looking after him. This is not pity. Not pity, let alone some condescending charity. This is me paying my dues, a 4-year late official payout ceremony. He hands the phone back, burying his face in his hands again. This time, there are no tears, but his entire body is trembling. I look at him, and that empty void in my chest finally feels complete. I walk over and sit right next to him, no more keeping my distance. I reach out, gently place my hand on his shaking shoulder. Wanwan, I call out, my voice softer than ever. It is all over now. He lowers his hands, looks up at me with a tear-stained face. Under the dim lights, the hollow, dead look in his eyes is gone. Now there is a tiny spark. Hope is slowly returning to him. He stares at me for a long time, and then a tiny smile slowly forms on his face. It is the most fragile, precious smile, like the first green sprout breaking through frozen dirt after a brutal winter. Moment, our 8-year deal of cash and pride is officially settled. And a brand new chapter is just beginning. The next morning, I wake up to bright daylight. First time since moving in that I did not need an alarm. Walking out of the bedroom, I was shocked to see Guanwan already awake. No curling up on the sofa like a ghost this time. Instead, she's standing right by the giant floor-to-ceiling window. The morning sun was beaming through the glass, giving her this crazy golden halo. She was drowning in my oversized tracksuit. Clutching a cup of warm water, she was just staring at the city waking up. The second she heard my footsteps, she turned around. Looks like a good night's sleep finally brought her back to life. Her eyes weren't completely hollow anymore. They looked like deep, quiet water. Still mysterious, but hey, at least there was a spark. Dead, lifeless vibe was finally gone. Morning, she whispered. Bro, my jaw dropped. This was the first time she actually greeted me. First. Morning, I nodded, playing it cool as I walked into the kitchen. I grabbed some milk and eggs from the fridge, and she slowly followed me, hovering at the kitchen door, looking super hesitant. Can I use your computer? Sure, password is your birthday, I said, not even turning around. I could literally feel her entire body freeze up. I kept cracking the eggs without looking back. Honestly, I set that password on a whim when I first moved into this place. I don't even know why I used her birthday. Maybe deep down, I felt like this house was still tied to our 8-year-long deal. By the time I served the fried eggs and warm milk, she was glued to the computer screen. I didn't want to ruin her focus, so I left her be. We ate breakfast in peace, no drama, just our first time sharing a table like normal roommates. No more awkward tension, just this quiet, delicate peace. Out of nowhere, she asks, how have you been these past few years? Her eyes were still locked on the screen. Must be nice, right? I shrugged. It's all right, just been slammed with work. But the money is good, I added. I saw your graduation project ranked #1 in the whole department, she said. I was shocked she even knew about that. You did great too, I said. Didn't you get an offer from the University of Pennsylvania? But the second I brought that up, Her eyes instantly went dark like a star burning out. Yeah, she muttered, shutting down immediately. Chugged the rest of her milk. Damn, I knew I hit a sore spot. She stood up to clear the table, saying she'd do the dishes. No need, I said, gently stopping her. My fingers brushed against hers. She was freezing cold and so thin I could literally feel her bones. She flinched like she got shocked and snatched her hand back. Chen Chi, she said, looking straight at me, I can't just crash here and eat your food for free. I need to find a job. But your body hasn't even recovered yet, I argued. I am fine, she snapped back, completely dead set on this. I looked online. There are plenty of jobs that don't need a fancy degree. A waitress or a cashier, I can easily do that. I stared at her stubborn face. Honestly, making the proud Wanwan work as a waitress was basically worse than death for her. But she'd rather suffer than take my charity. I paused for a second. Fine, I said, but before any of that, you need a new ID and a bank card. I slid a bank card with 120,000 across the table. Password is still your birthday. She stared at the card, biting her lip, refusing to touch it. This isn't charity, I told her. I locked eyes with her and said it clearly. You earned this. It's the return on the investment you made in me back then. Use it to start over. It was the final part of our deal. Calling it a deal was our unspoken agreement. It gave her an excuse to accept my help, and it let me take care of her without making it weird. She finally reached out and took the card, her fingers shaking the whole time. That weekend, I took her to the local office to get her new ID. When it was time for the photo, she was sweating. It had been so long since she stood in front of a camera, she didn't even know how to put on a normal face. Smile, please. Try to look natural. The photographer sighed, getting super impatient. She tried her best, but her smile looked completely forced, like she was about to cry. I stepped in and apologized to the guy. I knelt down right in front of her. Hey, look at me, I said. She looked up, completely lost. Do you remember the sports meet back in freshman year? I suddenly asked. She blinked, stunned. You were sitting on the main stage wearing your student council jacket and a white sun hat. I described the memory I'd been holding on to for years. The sun was blazing hot, and you were just laughing and chatting with everyone around you. My voice was soft like I was telling some random story, but her eyes started to change. The blank look faded, and her eyes started welling up. Just smile like that again, okay? I whispered. She stared at me for what felt like forever. Then she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she opened them, she looked straight at the lens. Slowly let out a soft smile. It was sad but also relieved, and deep down there was something she didn't even realize was still there. Classic pride of Gu Wanwan. Click, the camera captured it. Once we got her ID sorted, we headed straight to the bank. But man, it was way harder than I thought. The moment the teller typed her name into the system, a massive red warning flashed across the screen. Blacklisted debtor. The teller's face went completely cold, and she looked at us with pure judgment and suspicion. Sorry, ma'am, her voice was totally robotic. According to our policy, we can't open a new debit card for you. All accounts under your name are completely frozen. Guanwan's face went white as a sheet. Stood there like a criminal being sentenced in front of everyone. She could literally feel the entire room staring and whispering. I could feel her shaking. I immediately stepped up, shielding her from those toxic stares. Thank you, we're done here, I told them and dragged her out of the bank. It's no use, Chen Chi. She leaned against the wall, her voice filled with absolute bottomless despair. I'm literally on the blacklist. I don't even have the right to own a bank card. I can't even get a job. No company wants an employee who can't even get a basic payroll card. There is literally no place left for me in this society. She hugged her knees, slowly squatted down, burying her face deep in her arms. All the hope she'd finally built up over the last few days was completely shattered by brutal reality. Looking at her despairing back, my heart was hurting like crazy. But I knew any basic words of comfort would be totally useless right now. I pulled out my phone and dialed a senior from my college days. Bai is a partner at a top law firm now. Yo, senior, it's Chen Chi. I need some legal advice on how to handle someone on the debt default blacklist. If we want to get them off that list, what's the actual process? I kept my voice loud on purpose, making sure Wanwan, who's crying on the floor, could hear every single word. Her shoulders stopped shaking. She slowly looked up at me in pure disbelief. I didn't even look back at her, just locked into the phone call, nodding along and dropping questions. Right. So the main debt, just joint liability from a company bankruptcy, and the client didn't hide or transfer any assets? Okay, I got you. So basically, as long as we settle with the main creditors and pay off a chunk of it, we can apply to the court to wipe her record, right? Awesome, thanks a ton, senior. Dinner's on me next time. I hung up, squatted right in front of her, and looked her in the eye. You heard all that, right? I told you, it's not as bad as you think. This isn't a dead end, just a slightly annoying legal process. I'm getting you the best lawyers in the game. We are going to contact every single creditor, negotiate a solid plan, and pay this off. Whatever you owe, we're in this together. I stared straight into her eyes, making sure she knew I was dead serious. You are not alone in this. Her tears instantly started flowing again, but this time, they weren't tears of despair. Getting the lawyers to sort out the debt and hitting up the creditors, all those annoying legal steps were officially put in motion. I pulled out all the stops, leveraging every single connection and resource I had. My senior hooked us up with a legal squad that literally specializes in debt disputes. These guys were absolute pros and insanely efficient. Wanwan laid out everything she knew for the team. Honestly, her dad's leftover mess was way more chaotic than I thought. It involved multiple banks and dozens of private creditors, adding up to an absolute astronomical figure. But like the lawyer said, as long as she's still standing, and as long as there's a will to fix it, there is always a way. They immediately started reaching out to the biggest creditor banks, negotiating debt restructuring and settlement terms. It was going to be a long, painful grind, but hey, at least we took that massive first step. Knowing a professional team was cleaning up this mess lifted a giant weight off Gu Wanwan's chest. Her vibe was visibly turning around. She finally stopped locking herself in her room 24/7. Sometimes when I got home from work, I'd see her chilling on the couch, using a tablet to watch online lectures. Business management and design were areas she used to be absolutely cracked at. She was like a bone-dry sponge, greedily soaking up all that knowledge, desperately trying to make up for lost time. One night, while I was locked in working in my study, she walked in holding a warm glass of milk. "Still grinding?" she asked, setting the milk right next to my hand. "Yeah, this project is in a super critical phase," I muttered, typing away, without even looking up. But she didn't leave. Instead, she stood by my bookshelf, judging my setup. "Your room is way too empty," she suddenly remarked. I paused my typing and looked up at her. "Aside from technical books, it's just boring ornaments." She reached out and pointed at a brass globe on my shelf. "And this is way too old-fashioned." She said it with this super confident, critical tone, that classic, sassy Princess Gu Wanwan vibe I knew so well. I couldn't help but chuckle. "Is that so?" I leaned back in my chair, looking at her with pure amusement. "All right, expert, how would you set it up? At least give it some artistic flavor," she said, walking over and pointing at the blank wall behind me. "You need a painting right here. Cool-toned, a bit abstract. It'll balance out all these harsh straight lines in the room, making the whole space look way softer." She was gesturing with her hands, her eyes glowing with that confident, hyper-focused spark. Was the exact energy she only had when talking about what she loved. Right now, she wasn't some broken, helpless loser who needed saving. She was back to being the radiant Gu Wanwan who lived for aesthetics. "Sounds like you really know your stuff." "Duh," she smirked, tilting her head up with a proud little smile. "I literally majored in art history in college. My dad used to collect a ton of paintings, too." Her smile faded a bit at the mention of her father, but that spark in her eyes didn't die out. "Well, you're in charge then," I said. She froze. "I'm officially hiring you as my interior design consultant." I told her, dead serious. "Redecorate this entire place. You set the budget." She stared at me, like her brain was still loading. I grabbed a pen, scribbled on a sticky note, and slid it over to her. "Here's your first deposit." Written on the sticky note was, "Consultant fee, 1 bowl of shrimp over rice." She stared at the words, completely stunned, and then, like she remembered an inside joke, she burst out laughing. It was the first time she'd laughed since coming to this house. So clear and bright, like wind chimes. "1 bowl is definitely not going to cut it," she said, looking up at me with her eyes curved in a beautiful smile. I smirked, throwing some playful shade. "My taste back then was worth at least a whole semester of you getting me lunch." "Deal," I laughed. Outside, the city lights were absolutely glowing like a galaxy. I knew right then the real Gu Wanwan was officially back, and our story? We were finally starting a brand new chapter. No more guilt, no more paying back debts, just us, starting fresh together. She took this home design consultant job super seriously, like a sacred contract. The next day, she was fully locked in. While I was at work, she wasn't just sitting around watching online tutorials. She completely took over my absolute beast of a PC in the study. She was grinding, scrolling through elite design sites, checking out artist portfolios and online galleries like a high-tier curator. She even downloaded professional drafting software, grinding away with the mouse and keyboard, build a custom rendering of my apartment block by block. This was totally new territory for her. But bro, she learned it instantly. Her taste was just built different. Growing up in luxury, she had that natural aesthetic in her DNA. She knew exactly what looked good and how to mix different elements to create absolute masterpieces. When I got home that night, pulled out her tablet like a top-tier assistant, presenting to the CEO, dead serious about showing me her master plan. "This living room wall is way too basic and old school," she said. We need to paint it a warm gray or use textured wallpaper to add some serious depth. Your sofa is all straight lines, it's way too stiff. We need curves to soften the room. Let's ditch that boring square coffee table for a sleek organic round one. And the lighting? Having just one main ceiling light is a total vibe killer. We need a floor lamp in the corner and a cozy table lamp by the couch to set the ultimate mood. She was absolutely cooking, her eyes glowing with pure confidence and expertise. I didn't even interrupt. I just sat back and listened. Looking at her, it was like a total flashback to our college days, back in those intense group study sessions where she would effortlessly point out the exact flaws in the projects we pulled all-nighters for. Back then, she was totally out of my league. I was just in awe of her. But now, I just thought she looked incredibly stunning. As soon as she finished her pitch, I smiled. You are 100% right. So when do we go shopping? She froze, completely caught off guard. She definitely didn't expect me to greenlight her whole plan without questioning it once. What about the budget? She asked, super carefully. You're the boss, I shrugged. You tell me. She bit her lip, scrolling through her tablet for a second before showing me a number. Bro, that budget wasn't even enough to buy the jacket I was wearing. I frowned. That's way too low. It's plenty. Fired back instantly, totally firm. We don't need overpriced luxury brands. High-tier style doesn't mean burning a hole in your pocket. I know a weekend pop-up creative market where independent designers and artists sell their own work. We should check it out. We can find some absolute gems there. Her eyes were sparkling with pure hype. It was the first time I ever saw her excited about bargain hunting and saving cash. The contrast between this and her old wealthy self was wild, but honestly, it suited her perfectly. Saturday, I drove her out to the edge of the city to this creative market. It was set up in an abandoned factory, giving off major industrial chic and artistic vibes. The place was packed with young creatives and insanely unique booths. Wanwan was in her absolute element. She grabbed my hand, dragging me through the crowd. She had elite takes on literally everything we saw. Look at this concrete candle holder. The design is so sick. Only 30 bucks. This hand-woven tapestry has such a bold color palette. It would look fire on the wall. Oh, and look at this painting. She stopped right in front of a booth selling abstract art, her eyes glowing. The color scheme here is giving major Matisse vibes, but the brush strokes are way more free-flowing. Excuse me, how much for this one? The seller was a young art student who quoted a super fair price. Wanwan turned to look at me, her eyes pleading for a green light. I gave her a nod. She paid instantly, carefully rolling up the compact canvas. Spent the entire afternoon exploring every single corner. She grabbed a whole haul, vases, candle holders, tapestries, quirky little sculptures, and of course, that painting. None of it was expensive, but when you put them together, her god-tier aesthetic taste was on full display. I followed her around, carrying all the bags and holding the wallet like a dedicated assistant. Sunlight streamed through the massive factory windows, painting her in a gorgeous warm glow. There she was, clutching her painting, playfully haggling with a vendor over 10 bucks, smiling so hard her eyes curved. Watching her, it suddenly hit me. All my blood, sweat, and tears over the last 8 years were all for this exact moment, just so that after surviving the absolute worst storms of life, she could still stand here, laughing from the bottom of her heart over simple, beautiful things. On the drive back, she snuggled up in the passenger seat, clutching her massive haul, looking as satisfied as a cat that just got the ultimate treat. Chen Chi, she said out of nowhere. Thank you. For what? Thanks for trusting my taste. I just smiled, keeping quiet. The second we got home, she was already fired up to start the home makeover. She climbed right onto a chair, mounting that abstract painting right on the study wall. The cool tones instantly shattered the boring vibe of the room. She placed the $30 concrete candle holder right on my nightstand. Then she spread the hand-woven tapestry over the cold wooden floor. Bit by bit, every single corner of the apartment getting customized by her. That night, I walked into the study and just stared at the painting on the wall, completely speechless. Cold, empty apartment I'd lived in all by myself for so long. On this very day, it finally started feeling like a real home. Meanwhile, my legal team was moving way faster than expected. After surviving some brutal rounds of negotiations, they successfully got the biggest creditor to the table. A major state-owned bank finally agreed to a deal. They told us that as long as Wanwan could pay up on time and clear 20% of the principal, they'd ask the court to pull her off the blacklist. That meant getting her basic life back. No more blocked bank cards or travel bans. A massive win, right? But that 20% was still a massive, impossible number. An absolute astronomical sum that would crush any normal person. The lawyer slammed a thick stack of papers on the table, dead serious. Mr. Chen, Miss Gu, this is the absolute best deal we can get. The bank is giving us exactly 3 months to secure the cash. the deadline, and it is over. Everything we did is wasted. Hearing that, Wanwan's face went completely pale. Her tiny spark of hope got instantly crushed by brutal reality. After the lawyer left, the apartment went dead silent. She finally spoke, her voice cracking. I'll sell all my art and collectibles. My dad hid some assets overseas, if I can find them. Before she could finish, I cut her off. My voice was calm but sharp. Even if you sell everything, it is just a drop in the bucket. Her shoulders slumped instantly, all her energy drained. She was completely defeated. Seeing her despair, I went to my study, grabbed my laptop, opened it, and slid it right in front of her. On the screen was a trading terminal and a fully loaded personal asset report. We are talking stocks, mutual funds, high-yield assets, hell, and even angel round investments in hot startups. For years, while working like crazy, I dumped all my free time into the market. Just like how I managed those 90,000 bucks back in college, I meticulously planned every single penny. Bro, I was not just basic software engineer anymore. The wealth I accumulated over the years was way bigger than she could ever imagine. Wanwan stared at the crazy, dazzling numbers and portfolios on the screen, completely speechless. She gasped, This is enough to cover the first payment, and we still have plenty left over. I quietly closed the laptop and locked eyes with her. I told you, your debt is our debt. I do not do empty promises. But she panicked. But this is your money. Chen Chi. She jumped up, losing it. I cannot take your money. My life is already ruined. I am not dragging you down with me. Nobody is getting dragged down, Wanwan. I stood up, stepped closer, and looked straight at her. Think of this as a business deal. Did you forget? I am investing in you. I handle your debt, pull you out of this hole, and once your company gets back on track, I want 51% of the shares. That is a fair trade, right? She froze. She was processing it. Investment, equity, she stared my deadpan face, and realized I was not joking at all. And then, it clicked. She realized I was just playing the cold businessman to protect her fragile pride. I was always the ultimate warmth in cold, calculated business logic. She let out a weak laugh, but I have nothing left. Her voice was shaking. I do not have a company. I have literally nothing. You will, I replied, completely confident. It was like stating a solid fact. You can register a new company, call it Wanwan Design or whatever you want. You will be the founder and the head artist. I will be your very first investor. Suddenly, her tears started falling again, but she was completely silent, just stared right at me. After a long pause, she gave a heavy nod, a silent promise that meant everything. From that day on, things shifted in our apartment. We were not just landlord and consultant anymore. We were business partners. She stopped drowning in her past failures and locked in on our new business plan. She started grinding, doing market research, analyzing the competition, and even reached out to her old connections in the art world. That boss energy she used to have, it was finally coming back. Bit by bit, she was returning to form. Meanwhile, I handled the absolute nightmare of financial and legal mess. I liquidated most of my portfolio to back our joint venture. We were completely locked in and perfectly in sync. Felt amazing. Then one night, I got home super late from work, but when I pushed the door open, it wasn't pitch black. Instead, a warm glow and the delicious smell of home-cooked food hit me. Wanwan was wearing this goofy cart apron she found somewhere and was bringing out a hot plate of tomato and scrambled eggs. A classic comfort dish. She looked at me and said, I noticed you've been working too hard to eat. She set the plate down, blushing as she took off the apron. I just whipped this up quickly. Hope you like it. She made a full spread, 2 dishes and a hot soup, the eggs, some fresh broccoli, and a warm bowl of pork rib soup. Looking at the food and then at her, my heart completely melted. I sat down, grabbed my chopsticks, and took a bite. It was actually incredible. This is delicious, I said. She visibly relaxed, a soft smile lighting up her face. I learned how to cook it back when I was studying abroad. She sat across from me, whispering, I was just really homesick. It was the first time she ever opened up about her life overseas. I just quietly ate and listened to her story. She told me about getting lost in foreign supermarkets, cooking for herself, and crying herself to sleep because she missed home. She sounded so calm, like she was telling someone else's story, but I could picture this spoiled princess struggling all on her own. She had to face the cold, lonely reality all by herself. We finished our dinner in quiet, cozy warmth. Afterward, she insisted on washing the dishes. Hot. I didn't fight her on it. I just leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching her roll up her sleeves and work at the sink. The warm light hit her face, and she looked so beautiful. Right then, I realized the debt, the business, none of it mattered anymore. Honestly, I just wanted these peaceful vibes to last forever. With both of us putting in the work, our lives were finally starting to run like a well-oiled machine. Everything was falling into place. During the day, I was grinding on company projects and handling our massive debt crisis, but coming home to a warm light and a table of Home-cooked food made it all worth it. Meanwhile, Wanwan was locking in and pouring her heart into her new business. She registered her own company, set up her personal website, and started posting her home aesthetic vibes and sick design concepts on art platforms. Her talent was seriously fire, so she quickly built up a loyal following. Even though she hadn't landed any big-paying clients yet, she was booked, busy, and genuinely happy. Our dynamic was so wholesome. We were roommates, partners in crime, and co-founders building an empire together. Sometimes I'd look at her and think, wait, are we literally an old married couple? So when the fridge was empty on the weekend, she was like, hey, we need a grocery run. She waved the shopping list at me, and I just smiled, grabbed my keys, and headed out. This was our very first time doing normal couple things together. Store was packed and buzzing with life. Wanwan pushed the cart, carefully comparing prices on the shelves like a pro. She'd literally swap yogurt brands to save a few cents, but then immediately buy some random, useless pasta just because the packaging looked cute. I just followed her around, watching her switch from a budget queen to a playful kid in seconds. Honestly, she was so precious. But right when we were in line to check out, some voice behind us goes, "Wait, Chen Chi?" I turned around and saw this flashy, high-maintenance girl. She was staring at me in total shock. It took me a solid minute of digging through my old college memories to finally place her face. Her name was Lin Feifei, and she used to share a dorm with Wanwan. I gave her a polite nod, but her eyes immediately darted past me and locked onto Wanwan. The moment she realized who it was, her jaw dropped. It was pure, unadulterated shock, mixed with this nasty, bug, mean girl energy. "Oh my god, Guwanwan," she practically shrieked, making everyone in the checkout line turn to look. "Is that seriously you? I thought I was seeing things. Wow, look at you." She cut herself off, but her eyes did all the talking. She scanned Wanwan from head to toe with pure disgust. Wan was just wearing a basic white tee and jeans with zero makeup on. Clean. Even though she looked way healthier than when I first rescued her, standing next to this heavily made-up girl dripping in designer brands, she looked completely broke. Wanwan instantly froze, and all the color drained from her face. She instinctually shrank back, trying to hide herself from the world. I immediately stepped in, blocking her view and shielding Wanwan from that toxic glare. "Long time no see," I said, my voice ice cold. "We are busy, so we'll be taking our leave." I grabbed the shopping cart from Wanwan and started pushing it away. "Wait, don't run off so fast." Lin Feifei blocked our way, her gossip radar completely losing it. "Come on, we're old friends, let's catch up. I heard about what happened to your family. So now you are actually downgrading to be with Chen Chi?" Her voice was dripping with absolute shade, basically saying, "Look at you now. The high and mighty princess is now forced to leech off the poor kid she used to look down on." I stopped dead in my tracks. I slowly turned around and glared at her with pure ice. "Lin Feifei," I said, pronouncing every single word clearly. "Watch your mouth. Wanwan is my business partner. And more importantly, she is my family." I let those words sink in. Lin Feifei completely flinched, utterly crushed by my death stare and dominating aura. She opened her mouth but literally couldn't squeak out a single word. I ignored her trash talk, grabbed Wanwan's hand, and walked straight out of the store while everyone stared. Wanwan's hand was freezing cold and shaking uncontrollably. Once we got into the car, she didn't say a single word, just stared out the window. Had completely shattered the emotional walls she worked so hard to rebuild. It was a brutal reminder that to the world, she was still just a fallen princess, a ruined joke. After a long, heavy silence, she finally turned her tear-filled red eyes toward me. "Chen Chi," her voice cracked, completely broken. "Thank you for back there." I looked at her and said, "You are my family now. I will never let anyone hurt you." My voice was dead calm, but carried absolute weight. She stared at me, and her tears started pouring down like a waterfall. "Why are you treating me so well?" She sobbed, asking the exact same question she'd asked a million times before. Seeing her cry like that absolutely shattered my heart. It's been 8 years since that stupid truth or dare game. Since then, there was always this invisible wall between us made of business, debt, and guilt. I kept my distance to play it safe, thinking it was the only way to protect her and myself. But just now, at that checkout line, second the word family slipped out of my mouth, I knew I had crossed the line. I was done hiding behind stupid business excuses. I reached out and gently wiped the tears from her cheek. Then I leaned in closer. In that tiny, quiet car, in our own little world, I finally kissed her. Her body instantly went rigid, her eyes wide with pure shock. Were cold and salty from her tears, but incredibly soft. The kiss was gentle, tender, and completely pure. It was a promise 8 years in the making. I pulled back slightly, resting my forehead against hers. Then, looking straight into her completely flustered eyes, I locked eyes with her and said, "Cause ever since I got those $90,000 from you 8 years ago, you were never just my creditor. You were the light I looked up to for 4 long years, and the sole reason I fought so hard to rise up." That one goal and that kiss, it was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, completely wrecking my chaotic heart. But sending massive shockwaves through my mind, I could literally feel the heat of his lips and that clean, woody scent that always makes me feel so safe. When he finally pulled back, I was just frozen solid. No thoughts, head empty. Like, what did I even just say? He said I was the light he looked up to for 4 whole years. He said I was his one and only goal this entire time. Talk about emotional damage. These words hit like a series of gentle bombs. They literally exploded in my ears, completely shattering the mental walls I had barely rebuilt after reality dragged me through the dirt. But this time, it didn't leave a bloody wound. Instead, under all that wreckage, it revealed something I had completely forgotten about myself. A tiny, flickering spark. My throat was so dry I couldn't even make a sound. Tears were still hanging on my eyelashes, making me look like a total pathetic mess. You just feel sorry for me, right? That was the only logic my brain could process. He saw me at my absolute worst, and he only defended me in front of our classmates out of pity. He used this to give me some cheap comfort. Feel sorry for you? Chen Chi stared at me, and there wasn't a single drop of pity in his eyes, this intense, deep look that I couldn't read. Did you seriously forget 8 years ago? Who was the real pathetic one back then? I was wearing a faded, cheap old jacket, walking into that high-end KTV where even the air felt too rich for me. I couldn't even afford to split the bill. To all of you, I wasn't even worth being a joke. Voice was dead calm, like he was telling someone else's story. Did you pity me back then? He asked. I instinctively shook my head. No. I admit back then I was way too privileged, living in my own bubble. I looked at Chen Chi, like he was some creature from another dimension. I was curious, sure, and confused, but there was absolutely zero pity or sympathy. We weren't even on the same wave. You didn't, Chen Chi said. You just used a clumsy way, without even realizing it, to give me a real shot. You built a bridge for me with 90,000 bucks, giving me a chance to drag myself out of that dark, toxic swamp, to crawl to the other side and actually see the world. From that day on, you were standing at the end of that bridge, and I was running for my life across it, too terrified to stop. All I had to do was look up, and there you were, my ultimate target. I never actually thought I could ever stand right next to you. I just wanted to reach the finish line so I could finally look you in the eyes and pay back every single thing I owed you like a real man. It took me 8 long years, but I finally made it. He reached out, gently wiping away the tears on my face again. His eyes were burning with pure sincerity. But when I got there, you weren't on the bridge anymore. You fell, right into a swamp even deeper than mine. So this time, his voice turned incredibly soft. Now it's my turn to build a bridge for you. My tears instantly spilled over, completely unstoppable. So that was it. That stupid game I forgot ages ago, and that money I didn't even care about, to him, changed his entire life. A random rock I threw actually shifted the flow of someone's destiny. And now that river was rushing back to me, trying to save my dried up soul. I couldn't even squeeze out a single word. I could only let him shine a massive beam of light named Chen Chi right into my chaotic world. Honestly, I don't even remember how we got home. All I know is when he started the car, he naturally grabbed my freezing hand resting on my knee. His palm was huge, warm, and so strong. He didn't say a single word the entire drive, held on to me with this absolute solid grip. When we got to the apartment, he put the groceries away in the fridge. Then, just like always, he headed into the kitchen to make dinner. I stood in the living room, watching him work. Tall, solid, and comforting. This quiet, poor kid I used to leave in the dust had somehow grown into a massive tree that could shield me from any storm. He walked out holding 2 steaming bowls of noodles. Setting them on the table, he said, "Let's eat." I sat down and grabbed my chopsticks, but couldn't even move. "Chen Chi," I said, summoning every bit of courage in my body. I asked the ultimate question. "So, what are we now?" He looked up, seeing how incredibly nervous and anxious I was. He suddenly smiled. That smile was like warm winter sunshine, instantly melting the last bit of ice in my heart. He didn't even say a word. Instead, he reached over, his fingertips gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. It was so soft, carrying this unspoken intimacy. In that moment, I knew. The next day was Monday, and Chen Chi left for work early as usual. But I knew everything had changed. For the first time ever after he left, I felt this massive wave of emptiness. I walked over to his bedroom door. It was wide open. Inside, it was his usual minimalist, clean style. Everything was perfectly organized, just like his disciplined personality. In the bed were his pajamas he just changed out of, still holding his warmth and scent. Like I was possessed, I walked in and hugged them tight. I buried my face in them and took a deep breath. It was pure him. Realizing that made my face instantly burn up. Feeling like a total thief, I quickly threw the pajamas back and ran out of his room, my heart pounding like crazy. Really what it feels like to love someone? Sweet, nerve-wracking, and totally overwhelming. I spent the entire morning in a complete daze. I couldn't get anything done. Then a call from my lawyer snapped me back to reality. Miss Gu, the bank has officially confirmed the settlement agreement. We need you to provide some of your dad's old company asset records, especially the offshore ones. It is absolutely critical for our next round of negotiations. Do you remember where these documents are usually stored? I racked my brain, trying to remember where my dad. Turns out my dad had a super hidden safe. Not at his office, not at our main house, but at our old suburban mansion, the exact place where I grew up. After we moved to a luxury apartment downtown, that mansion sat empty. Only the housekeeper went back to clean it. But after everything went down, just like all our other properties, the court sealed it up. I told my lawyer, and he was like, "Say less, I will file an emergency motion right now." He used searching for critical evidence as a reason to get us one-time access. But he warned me I had to be ready because I needed to show them exactly where it was. When I hung up, my stomach literally dropped. Going back meant facing the place of all my core childhood memories, which was now basically a ghost town. Honestly, I was terrified. I told Chen Chi about it, and he went dead silent on the phone for a second before saying, "I am taking time off to go with you." I tried to tell him he did not have to. I told him he was way too busy with work, but he just went. I said I am going with you. Zero room for argument. 2 days later, we were standing there with the lawyer, right in front of those familiar iron gates. The court seals were already ripped open, and 2 court officers stood there, watching us with absolute NPC energy, staring at that familiar carved iron gate and the overgrown garden that had gone completely wild. My eyes instantly welled up. Still remember my dad building that swing set with his own hands for my 5th birthday. And that lawn, that was where I had my massive 18th birthday bash. Every single leaf and tree here was packed with my memories and our family's peak era. But now everything was different. My legs felt like absolute lead, and I could not even take a single step. Suddenly a warm hand grabbed mine. It was Chen Chi. Did not say a word. He just gave my hand a firm squeeze and led me inside, step by step. We walked into a place that felt so familiar yet so foreign. A thin layer of dust covered everything, and all the furniture was draped in white sheets like silent ghosts. The air smelled heavy and musty. Following my memory, I led them up to the 2nd floor, straight to the deepest room in my dad's study, his private gallery. The walls that used to be covered in famous paintings were now just empty frames. I walked up to one of the walls and, tracing my childhood memories, pressed the secret buttons disguised as books to enter the passcode. Boom! The wall slowly slid open, revealing a massive built-in safe. The lawyer and the court staff were completely shook. I spun the dial and pulled open the heavy steel door. No gold or flashy jewels inside like I expected. Just neat rows of documents and a few velvet boxes. I opened one of them, and there it was, a sapphire necklace, my mom's absolute favorite. In another box was a men's watch. Very first gift I ever bought for my dad. Turns out, the most precious things to him were never his million-dollar collections. It was these family memories. I lost it right then and there, tears dripping onto the velvet box. Chen Chi walked up and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Did not speak. He just rested his chin on my head, keeping me warm and safe. In that freezing room, filled with painful memories, I felt this crazy sense of peace for the first time. I knew I was not fighting this alone. My past might be shattered, but with him by my side, my future was finally coming together. And inside that safe, we struck absolute gold with the files we found. We are talking my dad's overseas stock certificates and super confidential trust agreements he signed years ago. The legal team's eyes literally lit up when they saw this. My lead attorney, Mr. Wang, was hyped, telling me, "This is massive. We have insane leverage with the banks. This proves your father was not maliciously hiding assets, but before the company went down, he had already set up a legal shield for his family. This is going to give us total control in court." This was the first real light at the end of the tunnel. We are still far from winning, but at least there is hope. As we left the mansion, I looked back at the desolate estate glowing in the sunset. The grief felt a little lighter. Maybe moving on is not about forgetting, but carrying the most important memories forward. And now, I actually have someone riding with me. On the drive back, I leaned on Chen Chi's shoulder, totally silent. He did not push me to talk, he just turned up the music. My favorite song, Castle in the Sky. The melody felt like a warm hug, easing all my anxiety. From that day on, life went into overdrive. The lawyers used the new evidence to launch a counterattack on the banks, and I finally got my first big break for my new business. 1 week later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a boutique hotel manager who saw my posts online about interior design and spatial aesthetics. He loved my vibe and wanted to invite me to design for them, to create the design concept for their brand new VIP lounge. The moment I hung up, I literally started jumping up and down. My first official client. I dashed into the study and threw my arms around Chen Chi while he was working. I got the gig. Chen Chi, I actually got the gig. I almost knocked him out of his chair, but once he realized what happened, he flashed the biggest smile. He held my shoulders, looking at my flushed, excited face with pure pride. I always knew you had this in you, he said. Honestly, his validation meant more to me than any massive payday. I poured 100% of my energy straight into this project. I pulled multiple all-nighters, researching non-stop and drawing dozens of design drafts. Chen Chi did not micromanage me at all, but every time I stayed up late, he would silently bring me warm milk. When I hit a creative block, got super stressed, he would take me out for walks and tell me hilarious stories from his work to distract me. He was literally the ultimate support system, always having my back right when I needed it. 2 weeks later, I pulled up with a massive, absolutely flawless design to meet the hotel manager. Bro was so blown away by my work that he signed the contract right on the spot. The advance payment wired straight to our Wanwan design business account in no time. When my phone buzzed with the bank notification and I saw that very first transfer, I swear my eyes literally started watering. Sure, compared to the crazy debt my family owes, this money is just a drop in the bucket, but to me, this was everything. It proved that I, Wanwan, am not some helpless burden who always needs to depend on others. I can use my own 2 hands and my own talent to rise up and run it back. I grabbed my phone, sprinted out of my apartment, and ran all the way to Chen Chi's office building. I called him and said, "Get down here right now." Like, literally right now. A few minutes later, he rushed out of the building, looking completely panicked, asking what happened and if everything was okay. Pain. I didn't even say a word. I just stood on my tiptoes and kissed him right on the lips, completely ignoring the crowd of people walking past us. Then I held my screen right up to his face, flexing like a little kid showing off an A+ report card. "Look, Chen Chi, I actually made bank," he